Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheets video in Practical Sheets. Today I want to make an update on Google Sheet dropdowns given that the software was updated by the end of 2022. So some things have changed, but mainly is the presentation I wanted to show you. If you've seen some of my videos or you already know a bit about dropdowns, you already have a way of doing them. So to do a dropdown, you can do right click and then go here in view more selections and data validation. This is the first change. Before I had a pop-up here. So you see some of my videos and most of people videos that were before 2022, and you'll find that when they do a dropdown, they will have here a very clear pop-up, so you will be a bit confused. So the first change is that now you have a panel more in line with, for example, the protection, for example, the conditional formatting. If you go here to conditional formatting, you have a similar panel here. If you go to protection in data protected sheets and range, you also get a panel here. So they're trying to make everything more similar. So it's changing the basis of the validation and making it more similar to Excel. They're talking about rules. Let's say that now the validations are not a property of the cell like before, but they are rules that you can change easily the ranges where it applies. So you access through the same menu, data validation. If you are here, then you need to do add rule and then choose the dropdown you want. I'll get there. And also, if you go right click and then view more selections and data validation, you also need to add the rule. If you want to skip this step of adding the rule, you can do right click and then go to dropdown. So it just skips one step. If I say remove rule, it goes back to the home of the data validation rules. Okay. And if I go here to insert, then you'll see a new button that says dropdown. And again, you know that we're going to a data validation. It just skips one step and goes immediately to adding the rule. Okay. So we have two dropdowns. This changes a bit from what we had before, just the naming conventions and how it was structured, because you had categories. You have the dropdowns. One was called dropdown from a list and the other one dropdown from a range. Then you have the text conditions, but you have to choose text and then you will have all of these conditions. Then you have dates and then you will have all of these conditions. You have numbers and all of these conditions, and you have checkbox and you have custom formula. So the options are the same. The difference is that now you don't have to choose first the category and then the subcategories, but rather than that, you have all of them in a list, similar to the conditional formatting, if you're familiar with that. Okay, but today we're going to focus on these two, dropdown and dropdown from a range. Okay, so dropdown is what before was called list from values or something like that, values from a list. So here you manually input some values. Let's say we're talking about countries. So here I'm going to insert one column to the left. I'm going to remove this thing and I'll say countries. Okay, so I already have my data validation. If I want to edit, I just click here and I have my dropdown and I can manually change the options. If you remember in the past, you only had one field and you would separate the options with a comma. Now you have several fields and you can put however you want. Before, I know the limit was 500. I'm not sure right now how much is it, but we could find out soon. Someone in the comments, I know that soon you'll tell me how much is it. Okay, so let's say Canada, US, Colombia, Spain. Okay, I'll click done, and here you have your 4 countries. So one of the modifications or differences you'll notice is that this menu has changed. It really looks nicer and it has like this background color. So if I go here again and click, you notice that first I could change the color of each country. So let's put Canada a blue, and the US I'll put this yellow, and Colombia I'll put it red, and let's leave Spain gray. I'll click done, and if I hit again, then I have this. Looks not that good, so I could customize it even more. If I go here, I could customize the background and the foreground. So I'll go here to Spain, I'll click customize, then I'll say that the text will be white and the background will be this yellow. And here I can see the preview. I'll hit OK. and then I'll click done. Again, we'll hit here and I change it. So I can customize the colors as I want. The second thing I can do is to change the order very easily. First I want Colombia, then the US, then the Canada, and then Spain. Before it was very difficult because you had just one list with commas and then you would have to do it manually. And you could remove very easily new ones. I could add much more, and let me see, I'm going to do a test. Peru, Ecuador, Argentina. I'm going to copy this, click here and then paste. This is the thing I don't like. That then if you want to put a lot, then you have one by one to do it, okay? So if you try to do down here, I have an error. Drop-down values need to be unique. Here I have these two that are empty, so I'm going to remove both, and that's it. So until now, the big changes have been in the drop-down by values, is that you put each value manually, you can delete each value, you can reorder each value, put a custom color to each value. And you can leave many values with the same color. For example, let's say you have 30 countries, but the more important are Colombia, US, and Spain. You could leave colors to Colombia, US, and Spain, and the rest you can leave them in a gray. So it's not only that each one has a different color, but that you can just color the ones you want. Not every option has to have a different color. Now let's go to the advanced option. So very similar to before, show help text for a selected cell. For example, if you put, I don't know, Mexico and you don't have Mexico, please choose one of the options. And here you didn't have this button before that you reset to the custom field that was before, the custom message. If data is invalid, you can reject the input or show a warning. Let's hit done and let's try to put here Mexico. Then I have my pop-up with my custom message. Please choose one of the options, okay? But I could leave it. Let's go again to our rule. Advanced options, I could leave it with just show a warning. Let's click done. Let's try to put Mexico. And we have just a warning. Input must be an item of the specified list, okay? This is the big change, this final option, the display style. This shape, a lot of people don't like it. You can change it very similar to what we had before, the arrow. The bad thing about it, or not the bad thing, different thing about the arrow is that when you choose an option, then it'll put the color. So if you don't want color, you just go here and just put here the basic color. Let's say that if we leave it gray, the custom color, the default color, and we hit done, it will put gray. So maybe what we could do is put it white if you like it as it was before. So let's just hit customize, and in our background we'll have white. This is FFF, and okay, and the same for all of them. I don't know, there should be a way of changing these colors, but I'll leave that for homework, okay? Again, FFF. Actually here I change it to, I need to change the background to FFF. And I'm going to do this for all of them. Hit done, and then we have it like before. It won't change a thing, okay? Finally, in my advanced options, I already saw shape, I already have arrow, and I already have plain, and now I have plain text. Plain text before was a different option. It was a checkbox like this that said that if I wanted to have a drop-down or not. Plain text works, for example, when you want to have autocomplete, but not a drop-down. For example, here you start writing Canada, and then you have the options, and the options come from what you had here. Or if you start writing P, then it goes to Peru. So it's the same as a drop-down, but it's more like on autocomplete. So it's very nice when you want to the user to start typing and see all the options, but you don't want to have a drop-down. And you'll see that even if you put arrow or chip and you start writing Colombia, then you will have also the options. So it depends on what you want for your particular project. I want to leave this as reject the input, and we're going to choose here US. A couple of things to keep in mind. Let's hit done. First thing, I click here and then you go to the edit rule. This is a thing that a lot of people has asked me, how can we change this? Because this is a hazard waiting to happen. let's say you are the administrator, and then you have your customers or your team or your suppliers, whatever, the ones who will edit this sheet. And then they go here and they don't know what they're doing, and they hit the pencil, and then they can change the drop down very easily, delete and damage all what you have. Okay, so I still don't know if there is a way. I have researched and there is still not a way. This is very recent, so maybe they will change this in the future, but for now you just have to be careful. It's important to know. The other main thing that I want to tell you is that this is a rule. If you are familiar with Excel, then you will love this because it's more in line with the conditional formattings and the data validation rules of Excel. So you can go here, countries, and instead of having to drag it down, copy and paste, copy the data validations, then you only have to colon and then B and then hit enter, and then you have it. Okay? I was working with Zoom very little, so I'm sorry about that. I think this is much better. So again, I lost it here, B2 to B, or you can click here and select a range, and you can select multiple range. For example, you could select the same dropdown for sheet do 1 B2B, and then select here from D2 up to D. So this is very, very flexible. This is the thing I like the most. Okay, let's hit done. And then you can very easily apply your data validations to a lot of ranges. This is what we could not do, and we had to do it copying and pasting the validations. Again, what I was telling you at the beginning of the video is that this now is not a property of the cell, but it's a rule that you can manipulate much more easily. And you can add more and more and more rules, and you can see them all in one panel that before you could not do it. You will have to go to the cell and see which is the validation. Now you in just one place can look at all of the validations you have in all of your book, in all of your worksheets. So this is really nice. You could remove them all in just one click. So this is one of the main changes of this updated data validation. And so here I can say country number 1, country 1, and here is country 2. Okay, so I'm going to put here country 3. And I'm going to create a new data validation. I'm going to click first. I'm going here, create a new sheet. I'm going to call it countries, and I'm going to put some other countries here: Mexico, Venezuela, Costa Rica, France. Okay, so I have these countries. Now I want to do not a data validation from values I manually write, but from a range. So I go here, right click, I go to dropdown, and it creates a new rule. For now, just an F2, and then I could enlarge it or select the range I want. In criteria, let's go here. I'm going to choose, instead of dropdown from a range. And I'm going to choose the range. So I'll go here to countries, select A2, and then Control Shift down 2 times. I can even remove the 1000, so it's always up to the last row. And you can see that automatically it brings it down. You cannot change it, you cannot delete it, you cannot reorder it as we did before, because it's based on this range. If you reorder this range, then it will reorder here. What we can do is to assign the colors the same way we did with the other ones: Mexico, Venezuela, Costa Rica, France, UK, and Germany. If we go to advanced options, it's the same advanced options as before. Nothing changes. Let's hit done. Let's go to sheet 1, and let's see here, and not a problem. The same thing applies as we've seen before. You could do it as a ship. You could do it as before. You could do it without a dropdown. Okay, so you can see that in reality it changes more in the surface than in the concept of data validation. So I want to see a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to change these countries. I'm going to create a new sheet. I'm going to call this conditional, and I'm going to put three countries: Colombia, Canada, and the US. And I'm going to put some cities below Colombia. So I'm going to put Colombia, and I'm going to add some cities: Medellin, Cartagena, and Bogota. Then I'm going to do Canada and add some cities: Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. And then I'm going to put US and Miami, New York, and Boston. I'm going to duplicate Colombia here, Canada here, and the US here. And let's hit country, Bogota. I already did, and this is city, sorry. I already did this in another video, but I just want to show you that nothing is changing and that all of the codes and everything that you already know how to do conditional dropdowns, it will still work. So I'm going here to conditional, and I'm going to put country, and here I'm going to put city. So here I'm going to do a very similar dropdown to what I did before, but I'm going to do it with these countries. Remember that Sheets has the nice thing that it doesn't matter if we have duplicates in our conditional when it's from a range. So I'll hit add rule. The range will be A2 up to A. The dropdown will be dropdown from a range, and the range will be these countries. For now, we can leave it here, but we could move it up to A if you want. Okay, here we have just the 3 countries, and let's give it some color. Actually, Canada should be red. Let's leave the US with gray, and let's hit done. So here I have my 3 countries. Now, what I want to do is a conditional formatting of that. When I select Colombia, I'll only have the cities of Colombia, because if here I add another rule and I say drop down from a range, and I choose from my range, I choose the cities. Again, let's go to B, and here let's say it's also up to B, and I hit done. Here I have all of my cities. I want this to be conditional. For this, I need to have an auxiliary sheet. Let's call it aux, and I'm going to create a list here. I'm going to create with a filter. I'm going to say that I want to filter my cities here. All of these cities, I want to filter them by the country, where the country is Colombia. So where A equals to this be A2. Okay, so that here I cannot see it. A2. So I have Medellin, Cartagena, and Bogota. That in this case is Colombia, but if I change it to Canada, then I have Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. I want to put this not in a column, but in a row. So for this, I'm going to use transpose. Okay, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and that's it. If I drag this down, then I will go for each of these rows. So if I do Colombia here and then the US here, it will bring everything well. If I go Control Shift down 2 times, Control D, it will duplicate my formula and it should work well. Okay, perfect. Now, just one thing missing. I'm going to change this dropdown. The dropdown should be this list. So I'm going here. I'm going to say, I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to change this from countries B2B to aux. And I'm going to choose this one, and I can go even further up to Z, and let's click OK. I'm going to hit done. Let's go back to conditional. Let's click again, and you can see that by default, this goes back to absolute range. And here it says use absolute references to lock rows and columns, but I don't want to lock it. So I'm going to manually remove this, all of the $signs. I'm going to click done. And now it should work. Here I have Canada, here I have Colombia, here I have US, and if I put here again Colombia, then I'm going to have Colombia again. And in this case, I don't have nothing because I haven't selected the country. Okay, so I just wanted to test quickly that you can still do the data validations and the conditional data validations without code because nothing has changed. Just a final note, I have done a bit of research, and apparently for the moment, we cannot change these colors and all of these from the code, or if it's cheap, the type, if it's cheap, if it's drop down, if it has no drop down. Before you could change if it has no drop down. I haven't actually researched that much. Again, this is very new, so I'm sure that before the 2023 is over, we're going to have more advances into this topic. But if you know anything, please leave it in the comments for everyone to know. Okay, so I hope this is a nice update for you, and you know better how to handle this new data validation that Google Sheets has put upon us. Okay, as always, thank you so much for watching. You can support me just by subscribing to the channel. Even more, if you like, you can go to the Patreon page where you'll find the templates of the more than 70 videos we have in the channel right now. Thank you so much. See you next time.